national income or net national product at factor cost. National income, or in fact net national income is also called as net national product at factor cost. National income or net national product at factor cost. You remember, my friends, when I started this particular topic saying national income of a nation or of a country is nothing but income earned by all the factors of production in a country. See, if more factors of production are employed, more is the income generated, more is the prosperity of an economy. You get me, my friends? But if you take in real sense, when it comes to GDP, what GDP is, the definition of GDP is the market value of goods and services produced in a country. You get me, my friends? So if you look at this particular example, the very first example I have given, let's say you have certain factors of production, the households, the owners of land, labor, capital and entrepreneur, the households, and you have a firm. Let's say this firm, instead of writing it as a firm, let's say, okay, there is a company called HPCL, which is into the business of purchasing crude oil and selling refined oil. So HPCL does this business of purchasing crude oil and refining it and selling the refined oil. So the firm here in this case is HPCL, and you have certain units of, okay, so certain amount of factors of production, the households. Now imagine, my friend, this HPCL cannot produce petrol out of thin air. It requires the services of factors of production. So it employs the factors of production, I mean services of factors of production. Since HPCL employs the services of factors of production, these factors of production has to be paid, okay, something in return. That is what I called as factor payments. Let's say this HPCL, okay, has paid 25 rupees each to these people. So he paid 25 rupees each. Okay, rent 25, wage 25, interest 25, and the profit of HPCL, okay, in producing 1 liter of petrol is 25. Okay, so the profit I made is 25. The amount of money I paid as rent to my landlord is 25. The amount of money I paid to my workers is 25. The money I paid as an interest to the banker is 25. So just imagine this HPCL at the end of the day has produced 1 liter of petrol. What exactly? Okay, HPCL has produced is 1 liter of petrol. To produce 1 liter of petrol, the amount of money I have to forego or I have to spend on the factors of production is 25 rupees each. You get it, my friends? And this is simply what could be said as the cost of production of 1 liter of petrol. Okay, or simply the factor cost of petrol. Factor cost of petrol. Factor cost simply refers to the amount of money incurred by the producer on the factors of production in producing 1 unit of output. So for producing 1 liter of petrol, how much money I have to forego from my pocket is 25 for rent, 25 for wage, 25 for interest and 25 for myself. Okay, you might be thinking, why should profit has to be taken as one of the remuneration? Because keep it in mind, friends, land is essential, labor is essential, capital is essential, so be entrepreneur. Just imagine you have huge tract of land, or simply, okay, many of you might be knowing there was internet and people have the habit of sharing things before it, okay, even after internet came to being, but unless you have Mark Zuckerberg came up with this idea of sharing nonsense, okay, we didn't have a product called Facebook. We didn't have a product called Facebook. So entrepreneur is like, okay, is also essential, like we have land and labor. Take the case of India. India is having immense potential. We have huge amount of natural resources and also human resources. But unless we have an entrepreneur who can take the risk of mobilizing these resources, producing some product out of these resources, there would not be any outcome in this country. isn't it? And that's the basic reason, like land, labor, capital, an entrepreneur is also quite essential to produce any good. So when the landowner has to be paid some compensation, obviously an entrepreneur who is also taking the risk also has to be paid some compensation. And that's the basic reason I am saying simply the cost of producing 1 liter of petrol here in this case, or simply the factor cost, how much money I have spent on factors of production in producing 1 unit of output is 25 rupees each, which is going to be my factor cost, which is 100 rupees. So what did I do? At the end of the day, I produced 1 liter of petrol which costed me rupees 100 including my profit. This is what is called factor cost of petrol. But in real sense, what so happens when a firm produces a good or service, the government would be levying taxes. The government would be charging some tax. The government would be asking this firm to pay a tax, what we call as excise duty. Excise duty, which is an indirect tax. I'll discuss about what exactly is the difference between direct and indirect tax. It's very simple, my friends. Direct tax is simply the tax where the tax is levied on you and you have to pay from your own pocket. Indirect tax is a tax levied on you and you will be the one who is paying, but not from your pocket. You will collect it from your customer. Simply take the case of income tax, which is a direct tax. What does income tax say? Any person in this country who is earning more than 2.5 lakh rupees per annum is bound to pay certain proportion of his income as income tax. So if I am earning more than 2.5 lakhs, okay, the burden or the responsibility of paying tax is on myself. I cannot ask my brother and sister to pay my income tax. You get it, my friends? So I am the one who is earning the income. I am the one who is liable to pay the tax on it, and henceforth the tax is levied on me. The tax burden is also taken care by me. But when it comes to service tax, let's say service tax. Here is the institute which is offering civil services coaching. So what is this institute offering? Good or service? Service. So since this institute is selling a service and making money, the government of India levies a tax called service tax on the institute. Who has to pay the service tax, which is called GST as of now, is simply the tax has to be paid by the institute itself, because the tax is levied on the institute, which is the service provider. Who has to pay that service tax? It is the institute. But how does the institute pay the money? It's not from the pocket of the director. Okay, it is the money that is collected from the one who benefits out of this service. It is you people. That's the basic reason you might have taken your receipt, and if at all you have gone home and go through that particular receipt, it includes the sum of fee paid by so and so person to the institute, including GST. So that particular GST, which is 18% or some X%, is the responsibility of payment of that tax is with the institute, but the institute is not the one who is taking its money from its own pocket. It is being collected from you people. And at the same time, you might have seen MRP inclusive of all taxes. When you purchase pencil, eraser, lipstick, it says MRP inclusive of all taxes. So what is the seller is saying? I am collecting the maximum retail price, including taxes. So the tax is something I have to pay because I am the one who is producing and selling it. But I don't want to take it from my pocket. I am collecting from the one who is benefiting out of consuming that good or service. That tax would become an indirect tax. Got it, my friends? So the tax is levied on me. I have to pay the tax, but I don't need to take the burden of payment of tax. I can pass on the burden to a third party, the one who consumes the good or the one who consumes the service. That particular tax is said to be indirect tax. Now let's say in this case, once HPCL produces a liter of petrol, the government of India imposes an indirect tax. Let's say here in this case excise duty. If the excise duty per liter of petrol, let's say, is some 40% on the value of the petrol. So if it is 40%, let's say it is as of now is 40%. So what does it mean? On 100 rupees, I have to compute 40 rupees. And it is, okay, and what is government saying? You HPCL, per every liter of petrol you produce, and sell it in the market, it doesn't matter for me how much profit you make. Okay, this has nothing to do with profits. Okay, if HPCL makes any profit, on the profits made by HPCL, again there would be a tax levied called corporate tax. But what I am saying is, on every liter of petrol you produce and sell it in the market, I don't know how much money you collect it, but you have to pay me 40% of the money collected, or 40% of the value of product as tax. So what HPCL does here in this case, since it's being indirect tax, instead of paying from its own pocket, it adds this rupees 40 to this factor cost. The indirect tax is added, and henceforth the HPCL would be selling, and this is what is called as market price. So at the end of the day, the price of 1 liter of petrol in the market turns to become 140. Why is it 140? 40 rupees is something I am collecting from you people because I have to pay to the government as a tax. 100 rupees is simply the amount of money that I have incurred on producing 1 unit of output. So this is market price, and this is factor cost. You get it, my friends? So here in this case, 1 liter of petrol in market is worth 140. 1 liter of petrol, the factor cost is rupees 100. Okay. Now tomorrow, my friends, imagine the government all of a sudden has increased this particular excise duty from 40% to 60%. What would be the market value of petrol? 160. How much is the money spent on factors of production? 100. You get it, my friends? So this might remain same, but this might change only because of mere change in the tax rate. You get it, my friends? So the measure of value of output in market includes not only factor cost, it also includes indirect taxes. But when it comes to factor cost, it excludes all indirect taxes. It takes into consideration what it really matters for the company to produce 1 unit of output. Now tell me, my friends, if I ask you people to judge which of these two measures is the appropriate measure of income in a society, 100 or 160, 100 or 140, which is said to be the true measure of income of a country? You remember the definition I have given for national income is income earned by all the factors of production. Tell me what seems to be the truly national income of a country, this 100 or this 140, this 100 or this 160. Keeping it 100, I can even make it 1000. I can make it 2000, I can make it 5000, I can make it 10,000 simply by increasing taxes. Now tell me what seems to be the best measure of income in this society. When I say income of a society, income earned by all the people in a society. Here in this case, what seems to be the correct measure of income? 100 or 160? 100. You get it, my friends? So until this point of time, and in fact this is how we measure the GDP. Generally this is what we call generally the national income, income earned by all the factors of production. So now how do you compute? In fact that is also called as net national product at factor cost. How do you compute it? From the net national product at market price, we subtract indirect taxes. We subtract indirect taxes. So if you subtract the tax component, 160 minus 60 or 140 minus 40, what you get is factor cost. You get it, my friends? It so happens therein, okay, this is not the place, okay, I mean, this is not where the story ends. If you look at in practice, now imagine at the end of the day when the tax rate is 60%, the HPCL has to sell the petrol at 160 rupees. Now if HPCL has to sell petrol at 160 rupees, the government might, okay, government of India might be thinking, oh my god, if the petrol cost is 160, too many middle class people, lower middle class people cannot afford to purchase petrol. So if the overall consumption of petrol comes down, what is going to be the impact on the economy is the sale of automobiles comes down, the sale of rubber would come down, the sale of services of automobile engineers would come down. So that would have a negative impact on the overall economy. The cost of transportation increases, isn't it? The cost of, okay, you get me, friends? servicing increases, so everything increases, and too many people cannot afford to purchase petrol at a 160 rupees per liter. This is where the government comes into picture. Now the government says, I do understand, my dear people of India, at a rate of 40% and 140 rupees per petrol, you people cannot afford to purchase. What am I doing is simple. I will subsidize. I will subsidize as means I will make part payment and you pay the rest. Now imagine if the tax rate is 40% and the market price of petrol is 140. Now just imagine the government makes a promise. I will pay a subsidy to the company of rupees 60. So what am I saying is, what is the promise of government is simply HPCL, out of every 1 liter of petrol you produce and sell, pay me 40 rupees is tax. But since the end price of the petrol is going to be high, my promise is that I will subsidize up to 60 rupees. I mean, every time you sell 1 liter of petrol, out of 140, collect 60 from me, collect the rest of the amount from consumer. Collect the rest of the amount from consumer. So now once government makes a subsidy of rupees 60, what would be the value of petrol in the market? Rupees 80. Okay, so the petrol in the market could be traded at 80. But what is the factor cost, or how much is the amount of money the HPCL might have spent on producing 1 liter of petrol? That is something could be calculated, okay, using this formula. So this is NNP at market prices minus indirect taxes plus subsidies. So if you compute these values, what is the market price of petrol after subsidy? Is 80. What is the indirect tax I need to pay? 40. What is the subsidy the government is paying me? 60. Now what is the amount of money I spent on factor of production? Is 100. This is how we calculate national income or net national product at factor cost. It is NNP at market prices minus indirect taxes plus any subsidies that the company or the producer receives. You get it, my friends? So now here in this case I can truly say, whenever I produce more petrol, more would be the increase in my factor income. But without any increase in my factor income or without any increase in my production, petrol, I can increase this price, okay, by increasing taxes. But this would only increase when I produce more liters of petrol, more units of petrol, isn't it? So now tell me what seems to be the correct measure of national income is this, because when I produce 2 liters, then the money earned by these people would be 200. When I produce 3 liters, then it would be 300. When I produce 4 liters, it would be 400. When I produce 5 liters, the income earned by people would be 500. But without any change, I can change it to 500 or 600 by increasing taxes. So that's the basic reason. In general, we don't take these market prices into consideration. What we consider is the factor cost. Okay, and that's the basic reason. Until this point of time, until 2015, we in India used to calculate GDP at factor cost. Okay, GDP calculated at using factor cost, not taking indirect taxes into consideration like sales tax, purchase tax, any other taxes. We only take into consideration the cost of output. I mean, how much money the company has incurred in producing 1 unit of output. Clear, friends? And this is what is said to be called as national income or net national product at factor cost, which is net national product at market prices minus indirect taxes plus subsidies. And it's many a times it so happens the UPSC would be simply changing the signs plus and minus, and would be bringing NNP at MP market price to this side and this, okay, to this side, and that's how it tries to confuse you people. But it is simply a mere logic. What you want to compute at the end of the day, the amount of money the company spends on 1 unit of output production. It is simply the income earned by all the factors of production. So how could you do it? Simply from the market price, remove the indirect tax. But at the same time, if the component experiences or if the product enjoys any subsidy, add that product subsidy amount. What you get is the price of the product at factor cost.